Hey guys, here we are again. We are here for episode 2 of the Delphi Murders, the defense case. So, hopefully, you got a chance to watch the first video that I did that we released earlier today on uh, why he did it or he did it. Uh, the whole idea of the prosecution or the state and all of the things that they went through at the trial. Went over in some excruciating detail what happened each day of the trial, how that factored into the state's case against Richard Allen, the fact that he was, in fact, found guilty and convicted of the crimes of murdering Abigail Williams and Liberty German, and that he was sentenced to 130 years for those crimes, the maximum sentence allowable. And so today, or now, I guess, because it's the same day for you guys, also the same day for me. I'm recording this a couple hours after I recorded that first one. So it's funny. I always feel like I need to give you guys the real deal here. Like we're super low budget, trying to get all this stuff done, but trying to get it out there, right? So today we're going to go over the defense and all of the trials and tribulations and filings that went through the defense side of this case, because there are some significant things that happen that may change your opinion about this case altogether. There are certainly some very strange things that happened as things went through the process of this trial that make me question a lot of things. You know, uh, we heard all of the state's evidence, and certainly with the evidence as it was presented, I can understand why the jurors came to the decision that they did. Now, the truth is, did those jurors hear the whole story? Did they really get all the information to really make an informed decision on the fact that Richard Allen is the guy? Now, we're going to talk about all of this stuff. And what you're going to find is that, there's a lot of question marks still there. You know, is this all of the information that needed to be presented to these jurors so that they could make a real decision? Did the public and did everybody else really get the information that was related to this trial? Was it even investigated the way it should have been so that the real culprit or culprits were identified? There's still a lot of questions in this case. There's a lot of questions that I have. The defense, I believe, put out some very compelling things that were kind of shrugged off by Judge Gall, and never saw the light of day. So we're going to go through this from before the trial, uh, back when Richard Allen was just arrested and got his attorneys, right? And then we're going to go through that. We're going to talk about all of the different filings and things that came in, or at least uh, as close as we can get. I'm sure we're going to miss a bunch because this case had a flurry of filings and, decisions that were made on this trial that really changed the landscape of what was able to be talked about at the actual trial. So, yeah. So anyway, we'll start out here on October 31st, 2022. Richard Allen is arrested. Now, he also pleads not guilty. He's held without bond. And later on, after the sentencing of Richard Allen, Baldwin and Rosie ask for, or petition for the date of his arrest to be changed to October 26th. Now, you might wonder, like, what the hell does that matter at all? Like, why does it matter if he was arrested on the 26th, he was arrested on the 31st? I can guarantee you that that has something to do with an appeal that will be coming in the future. And it's going to matter what day he was actually arrested and what day that he was taken in. There is going to be something about that. I don't know what that could be at this point, but there is a reason why they petitioned to have that changed to October 26th. And it has been changed to October 26th is the date of his arrest. So on November 22nd, 2022, Allen is granted a bail hearing, and the prosecutor says in court that Allen may not be the sole suspect. So already early on in the, all of the stuff with Richard Allen, we're finding that, it might not just be him. And they actually, during this time, actually petitioned to the public to give more information of anybody else they might know that might have been part of this crime, because they were not sure that Allen was the guy and the only guy that had participated in this murder. It's interesting because, and we'll talk about this much, much more tomorrow, but many of the investigators up until from like 2017, 2018, all the way up until midway through 2022 or 2023, we're not sure that it was just one guy that had done it, which is very, very interesting. When you look at this and the fact that Richard Allen is now convicted of being the sole person who murdered Abigail Williams and Liberty German. So there's a lot of speculation that whether you believe the Odinism stuff or not, or whatever you believe about that there was more than one person involved in this crime. And it may have been that Richard Allen was one of those people. But what about the other guys, or what about the other people that were involved? So that's something that is really, really interesting when you look at the defense side of this. So on April 6th, 2023, Baldwin and Rosie file an emergency motion because they believe Allen is being mistreated in custody. So this is the first time that that there has been a filing about his treatment while he's in prison. And at the time, he's at Westville. And they believe that there's something going on. Part of that is because Richard Allen has lost a significant amount of weight. I think something like 50 pounds since he's been in custody. And he is refusing to eat. He's having serious psychotic episodes. And so they are trying to figure out like what's going on. In this, and I'll talk more about this tomorrow, but during this time, when Baldwin and Rosie are going in to meet with their client, they are constantly being monitored by the prison guards. Now, you might think that this is common practice. It is not. The fact that the prison guards were taking their own camcorder and recording the meetings between Baldwin, Rosie, and Richard Allen is bordering on illegal. Like, it is not supposed to be done. That is privileged information. What the defendant talks to with their defense counsel, it is not supposed to be recorded by the prison. However, it was being recorded by the prison, or at least by these prison guards during the time. So there are some funny things happening. And these are the reasons why they file motions to get him moved, so that they get him out of the area so they can actually have conversation with the person they're trying to defend. Because up until this point, they can't really get any real information from Allen, because it seems like he's holding back saying things. Now, why? How could that be? So anyway, we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we start digging into the theories. On June 13th, 2023, the defense team files a motion to suppress ballistics evidence from the trial. We talked about this yesterday, or yesterday, I keep saying earlier. We talked about the fact that the ballistics evidence is very, very suspect, right? This idea that that they took a bullet that was cycled through Richard Allen's Sig Sauer and tried to match it up with the bullet that was found at the crime scene. They were found to be inconsistent, that it didn't seem like it had come from Allen's Sig Sauer. The markings were not the same. And then they used a spent shell casing that they fired through Richard Allen's Sig Sauer. And those tool markings were consistent with the unspent bullet at the crime scene. So there is a real big discrepancy on whether that is good science or junk science, right? Those two things are not the same. An unspent round, the defense expert said, is not the same as a bullet or a casing that has been fired through a gun. Those markings are not the same. And so they can't be used that way. Now, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, that didn't make any difference to the jurors in this case, because that was presented, both sides of that were presented at trial, and the jury still convicted Allen. So early on June 13th, 2023, they filed a motion to suppress that ballistics evidence. Obviously, that motion was denied because the ballistics evidence ended up at trial. So on June 15th, 2 days later, there was supposed to be a bail hearing, and instead there were arguments over various issues, including Allen's mistreatment and declining mental health. Also, this is the first time that the confessions are mentioned in any proceeding. So it's the first time that it comes out that there are confessions. And of course, I remember when this was all happening and the flurry of podcasts that were now talking about, oh my God, he's confessed. What are these confessions? What did he say? Who did he say it to? And at the time, all we had was that we knew that Allen had talked to prison guards. He had talked to other inmates, and that he had confessed to his wife on the phone. Right. So we knew that, but we were all wondering, well, what do these confessions sound like? Were they, Richard Allen saying, yes, I did it? Or was it, kind of this forced kind of thing? Was he out of his mind saying, well, I think I did it. I might have done it. I did it. What was it that was actually said? And so, of course, in trial, we find out what that was and how it was said. And we know that there was now like details that he also gave, which makes it look far more incriminating. But this is the first time on June 15th that the bail hearing did not happen. There were lots of arguments, and the confessions are mentioned. Now, on June 29th, 2023, Judge Gall unseals 118 documents in the case. Those documents included some confessions and that the belief that a knife was used in the killings. So those are the two main things that come out of that. It's interesting that Gall unsealed a bunch of documents, and those were put out to the public so we could get to see a little bit of insight into this, I guess. On September 18th, 2023, Baldwin and Rosie released the Odinism theory in a 136-page memorandum that goes out to the public. The prosecution, of course, responds that there's no proof. They say that it's all bullshit. And it's interesting because this is something that is not typically done, right? The defense usually keeps everything pretty close to the chest. as they're waiting for trial. They usually don't release a lot of things. This is the first time uh, that I know of that the defense literally releases every piece of information, or a lot of the information that they have, that they've discovered through the discovery that's been given to them from the prosecution. Uh, and they've uncovered this whole theory. And so they go into painstaking detail. Matter of fact, for the next episode, when we talk about theories, we'll talk about the Odinism theory. And I went back and I read through the entire 136 page memorandum and pulled a bunch of the information directly from there. And it is a fascinating read. It's easy to find. You can find it online. Obviously, you can't see any of the attached documents to it because some of those involve the crime scene photos and things. So you can't find that. But you can read the memorandum itself. And I think it is incredible. It shows a lot of things that never got to trial that are fascinating in this case. And so I would encourage you, whether you believe that Alan did it or if you believe that Alan is innocent, that you don't just take the word of me or any other podcaster that's out there that's giving you this information, but go read that shit for yourself. Like, see what you think. See how valid that information might be. Is it valid? Is it all bullshit? Is it just crazy theories and stories? I don't know. It seems pretty compelling to me. So, I would encourage you to go read it for yourself and to see what was actually said there and to see the evidence that they had or they have, because it's important to really look at this from all the different sides. Like I said, even if you believe that Alan is guilty of sin and he is exactly where he needs to be, you should read that memorandum so that you know what the other things were pertaining to this case. And you didn't just hear it from the prosecution side and the evidence that they had, right? So I would encourage you to go and do that. Check it out. Let's see. Where was I? Okay. So on September 26th, the prosecution officially responds, calling the memorandum false information. So it took them, 8 days to respond, like officially. Now, here's when things get really, really dicey for the defense. Some shady shit happens on October 5th, 2023. Crime scene photos are taken from a room in Baldwin's office and leaked online. This becomes a real, real big deal. On October 9th, 2023, Mitch Westerman, who is a former employee of Baldwin, admits to taking the photos from the office. The person he shared the photos with posts them online, then kills himself after the police question him. So already there's some real weird shit happening in this case, right? A former employee goes into the office when it's closed. Andy Baldwin, is a defense attorney, right? And he kind of catches he definitely catches a lot of heat for this, because in the office, in the back room, is all of the discovery is lying out on a table. The room is not locked. So anybody that can get in the front door or has a key to get in can get in and take whatever they want, right? It's not under lock and key. So he catches a lot of flack for the fact that someone was able to break into the office or get into the office and go into that back room and take whatever they wanted. And that's what happens. Mitch Westerman, we never do find out or at least I couldn't find exactly who the person was that actually leaked the information online. Now, a lot of this information went to, of course, Reddit and things like that. And several podcasts ended up receiving this information. Most of them did not release it. Most of them held it back and returned it without releasing it to the public, which is a great thing to do. it should not have been released. It should have never been taken out of the office, but it was. So 10 days later, on October 19th, 2023, Baldwin and Rosie are removed from representing Allen by Judge Gall after the leak. Now, it is said that they stepped down. That is not exactly what happened. Clearly, because they are reinstated later on. This was kind of a power move by Judge Gall, and she was not going to have them. She felt like she actually states then that they are sloppy, negligent, and incompetent in their handling of the discovery. And they are basically told that you need to step down, or, we're going to bring up charges and everything else. And so they end up stepping down and being removed from being defense counsel for Richard Allen. Now, what that means is that they have to then turn back all the discovery. They have to turn back in all of the work that they have put into this case. And now they have to eventually, when they get back on the case, have to start from square one. So this is like 6-8 months that they lose on the case because of this issue that happens. So they turn back all the discovery. Robert Scremin and William Labrado are assigned to represent Allen's defense. So you have two new defense counsel there. And it's interesting because when you look at what actually ends up happening is Scremin and Labrado, even though they're brought on by Gall, right? These end up being like kind of called Gall's defense attorneys, however true that is, whatever. But they're appointed by her to defend Allen. They don't shy away from a lot of the things that Baldwin and Rosie had already been working on. So you would think that they would just get rid of the Odinism theory altogether, and they don't. They continue to investigate that and continue to work with it, which really shows you the strength of the investigation that the defense was doing, and that it definitely had a lot of weight, because a lot of people were saying that, it was just all bullshit, that it was weak, that it had no legs at all, and that there is nothing to it, that it's just another crazy play at Satanic Panic. And I don't think that is the case. I think that there is some real weight behind it, or you wouldn't have 4 different defense attorneys really looking at that and thinking that, hey, this is going to be the thing that breaks this case. So it's very interesting. On October 26, 2023, Baldwin and Rosie file several motions against Judge Gall. It's interesting because, they're trying to get her recused from the case, from the trial, try to recuse herself, and trying to get her thrown out because she is impeding the defense, and they believe that she is, his constitutional rights. Allen asked and wanted them as his defense counsel. After they were removed, he asked for them to be put back. He wanted the Baldwin and Rosie. He did not want Scremin and Labrado. So, and in this country, you are allowed to have the counsel that you want. And they filed several motions against what Judge Gall was doing, because she was the one that was deciding that they were not fit. So on October 31st, 2023, Judge Gall pushes the date back of the trial to October of 24. On November 6th, 2023, Baldwin and Rosie petitioned the Supreme Court to remove Gall. McLeland files an additional murder and kidnapping charges, which end up being the additional 2, because when it goes to trial, Richard Allen is charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of additional murder with kidnapping charges. Those are the ones that eventually get dropped. But on November 6th is when he files those additional murder charges against Richard Allen. Now, I believe that this is the second time that Baldwin and Rosie petitioned the Supreme Court to remove Gall. On June 12th, 2024, the new defense team asked for a transfer for Allen due to mistreatment in the prison. So again, this second defense team is now saying, hey, there are things that are not right here. Like they're not treating him right. He needs to be moved to another place. So they're now asking. Again, remember, this is Gall's appointed attorneys that are now asking for Richard Allen to be moved because he's being mistreated at the prison. All right, January 18th, right? 6 months after, almost 7 months after they asked for the transfer, the Indiana Supreme Court reinstates Baldwin and Rosie as defense counsel for Allen. So this is now like 8 months after they are removed from being the defense counsel. They are now reinstated by the Indiana Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court refuses, or not refuses, but denies the motion to remove Judge Gall. So they put him back on the case, but they refuse to tell Judge Gall to go take a hike. Scremin and Librato bow out of the defense, and they go their merry way off into the sunset. Maybe because they feel like there's no way in hell they're going to win this case, and they don't want it to be put on them. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know anybody that's talked to Scremin and Librato, and maybe that would be interesting. I wonder. I would love to talk to them and see, like, get their take on everything. Now that the gag order and everything is not in effect, they should be able to talk about it. So now the discovery is reissued to Baldwin and Rosie. And this is a big thing, right? 8 months. They are without the discovery. They took many, many months to go through the discovery, to pull out all of these things. And, Bob Motta describes it as, these boxes that come and they just kind of throw everything in there and they give them to the defense, and the defense now has to figure it out and go through all this stuff, all of these thousands and thousands and thousands of documents and reports and interviews and all of this stuff that they now have to go through in a very short time frame to figure out how they're going to produce a defense for Richard Allen. And so they're starting at square one, trying to figure this out, trying to go back and put it all back together. And there are a lot of things that we find out later on are not even in there, right? That have mysteriously disappeared or were never given in the first place to the defense, even though it is supposed to be that everything that the prosecution and the state has used is turned over to the defense so that they can do their job in investigating and giving their person the best defense possible. So, but there you go. That is happening. On January 28th, 2024, there is a new motion to remove Judge Gall. Another one. On January 29th, 2024, McClelland attempts to get the court to hold Baldwin and Rosie in contempt for mishandling evidence and public statements that they have made. Right? So this is, again, going back to the photos that were released and the different evidence that has come out, the fact that they had put out the memorandum and the statements that they've made to the press and everything. He is stating that they are violating gag orders and things because I believe that the gag order was in already out there, that was already part of it. If not, this is the reason why the gag order becomes a thing and everybody is gagged. So February 7th, 2024, the defense team positions to have murder charges thrown out, stating that several key interview recordings were deleted and mishandled by the investigators, as well as key evidence in the case. Uh, and at this time, that third attempt to remove Gull is denied. So they deny it again. Gull is going to be the judge. But the defense is saying, hey, there's a bunch of stuff here that is no longer here, right? And specifically, and we're going to talk more about this later when we get to the theories, but there were other suspects that were interviewed that mysteriously their interview tapes were recorded over, were corrupted. And so the defense could not even use those, right? There was no interview of Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall. Those things had completely disappeared from any of the discovery. So the defense is like, hey, this is a big part of the case. This is key evidence that we need to really understand who committed these crimes. And these are other people that have confessed to the murders. So where is this evidence? And to this day, it has not been seen. It's gone. Those things were deleted and disappeared. Now, on February 8th, 2024, Gull denies the motion to move Allen to another prison. She says no. So he stays at Westville for the time. On March 11th, 2024, Gull granted the defense request to move up the date of the trial to May 13th. This is the speedy trial where they were trying to get it done as quick as possible. You wonder if they really push for this because obviously it forces the prosecution and the state to not be ready for trial. But at the same time, there were a lot of things at this point that were still possible to be allowed in the trial that here in the coming weeks are taken out. So maybe they were trying to get it in so that they could present it at trial and try to do it as quickly as possible before they caught on to the fact that they didn't want to have this come out of trial. So, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. That's something that old Bob Mata could tell you because he's a defense attorney and he knows his shit. So I'd be interested in your take, Bob, because you've always got fantastic information. For you guys that have not checked it out, go and watch Defense Diaries. Bob Mata does a great job. If you want to see the defense end of things from a defense expert, him and his wife Allie are incredible, and they really like dig down into the nitty gritty of all the different trials and go through. Of course, again, it is often from a defense perspective because that's what they know. And so you need to look at other things too and listen to the other side of the story. But they are a fantastic wealth of information and have really great stuff. So check them out. Bob is often on Court TV talking about all the trials and stuff that he's working on. And he is got to be one of the hardest working people in true crime right now. Golly, that guy is everywhere. They say that I'm everywhere. Bob really is everywhere. So, all right. Let's see. All right. March 18th, 2024, Gull dismissed 2 counts of kidnapping. Defense states that Gull is denied releasing funds to pay for defense experts. Instead, the defense has to go to crowdfunding to get the money they need for the experts. So this is a big thing that often does not get talked about. There is always money that is supplied for both. The state obviously has to get experts in ballistics and all of that. And a lot of times they have them, right? They've already have them working on it. But the defense has to then go out and pay people to take on the case so that they can look at the evidence and go through and get their perspective of what happened during this crime. The state is supposed to release funds to the defense so that they can do that. So they have a fair amount of money to be able to get what they need accomplished. Now, what the defense is saying is that Gull denied them the majority of that money. I think that they were, um, I don't want to say because I don't remember exactly, but it was not nearly enough to cover all of the experts that they were going to need to prove their case. So they literally go to crowdfunding and people donate a ton of money to get what they could for experts to come in and plead their side of the case. Now, if that's not handicapping the defense, and this is only the beginning of the handicapping that happens to this defense team. They've already been thrown off the case. They've already lost 8 months of work that they could have been doing on preparing this defense for Richard Allen. And now they're not released the funds to be able to hire the experts that they need to really go out there and to discuss all the intricacies of this case. And so it's really difficult. It feels like there is an agenda to make sure that the defense is not adequately able to defend Richard Allen. Uh, it's just crazy to me that all of these things could be true, and of course, they're all coming down from Judge Gall. And yeah, it's very interesting. So on April 25th, 2024, Gall declares no cameras in the courtroom for the Allen trial. So she denies allowing people to watch this and to see it firsthand and to make their own decisions. Everything is, there's a gag order. There is no ability for us to know other than people who were there that day at the trial. And so everything that we've gotten, everything that I've gotten is all secondhand. So, but we do the best we can, right? On April 30th, 2024, the prosecution asked the court to stop the Otism theory from being presented at trial. So here we go. The prosecution realizes, obviously, since they had the report, that they were heavily leaning on all of this Odinism stuff to come out at trial, and they now petition to get it stopped altogether. That they cannot put anything in there about Odinism. So, yeah, again, just another mark against the defense being able to actually have a defense. On May 2nd, 2024, Gall makes a ruling in the contempt charge. The state files against Allen's defense. She again calls the defense team sloppy, negligent, and incompetent, but decides not to hold them in contempt. So the prosecution petitioned for that to happen. Gall decides not to hold them in contempt, but degrades them a little bit more and tells them that they're no good at their jobs, right? Which is always fun. I don't know about you, but when I'm at work and somebody says that you're shit and you don't know what you're doing and you're terrible at your job, it hurts a little bit, right? I won't say that that's happened to me recently, but it has. Not involving true crime, but some of us out here still have a day job and have to go and do that while we're making all this content and doing everything else as far as being out here and doing stuff within the true crime realm because this is the passion, right? We love this stuff. We love digging in and looking at all these things, but you got to be able to pay the bills too. Uh, you know, and we all hope that at some point we get to the place where things are popular enough, just like this channel. Hopefully, at some point we can get it monetized where it's actually making money and we're doing ads and stuff like that, and it's supporting itself rather than me putting time and effort and money into it and not getting any return in that. Because it'd be great to do this full time and not have to run and work 40 hours a week. That'd be great. So, you guys out there, if you like this content, make sure you help me and subscribe and like and share all this and comment below so that we can get to a place where we can do that. Because I would love nothing more than to be working on all this stuff full time. It'd be incredible. So anyway, there you go. There's my my little ad in the middle of all of this. I didn't do one in the whole hour and 40 minutes of the first part in this, and now we're on part two, and I've given a little one. So Uh, so you guys should feel glad about that. Okay, May 2nd. Okay, we already said that. May 7th. Gall resets Allen's trial dates for October 14th in Carroll County. So, speedy trial? No. She decides nobody's ready and that we're going to hold it off. And, we're going to reset it for October 14th, which is consequently, I believe, when it actually starts. Or it may have been a week before that or something. We'll get to that in a minute. June 19th, 2024, defense claims that Carroll County Sheriff's Office lies about transportation of Allen and asks Gall to testify for the defense. This is a weird request. You've got Judge Gall, who clearly has issues with the defense. And I just think it's kind of funny that the defense was like, hey, you know that this is true and that they just lied. So you should testify for us. Clearly, that is not going to happen. That ain't going to happen. Not any way, shape, or form. But it's funny to think about it. I think it's just one of those annoying little motions just to be like, hey, this is what we think. All right. August 14th, 2024, Gall denies the request to have the case dismissed because there are many requests for that. Let's see here. All right. August 29th, 2024, Gall rules that the confessions are admissible in court because there was some question up until this point whether those confessions were actually legitimate and should be brought to the jurors. And Gall says that they are. On September 4th, 2024, she rules that the Odinism theory and the third party theory is not admissible at trial. She says that the defense has not presented adequate evidence. Now, she read, I'm sure, the 136-page memorandum. I don't know how she could feel that that was inadequate. I have questions about that because it seemed pretty compelling and really adequate to me that there was a lot of evidence in there that is critical to this trial for the defense that is now cannot even be mentioned. And when she rules that the Odinism theory can't be brought up at trial, that means that all of the people who were suspects in that theory, the 4 or 5 people that may have been connected, cannot be brought up at trial. Can't talk about them. Can't mention Odin. Can't talk about any of the ritualistic aspects of the case and the murder scene. And so you want to talk about really stopping the defense from being able to do anything. This is on September 4th. Next month. 1 month away. The trial is going to start. And 1 month before, the number one thing that the defense has been working on to bring to trial is omitted from the trial. Well, let that sink in. For the defense, what that means. Now, on September 9th, 2024, the defense files an interlocutory appeal saying that Gall, that her decision to keep out that evidence hamstrings the defense and violates Allen's constitutional rights. So what they're saying there is like, hey, you've taken this out. We can't even bring this up at trial, but this is a vital piece of the defense for Richard Allen. You are not allowing him to get a fair trial because you're taking out stuff that is vital to the defense and vital to showing that this guy did not commit these crimes. So I don't know. There's a lot of things happening there in Delphi that seem really fishy. And these are a lot of the reasons why I have questions when it comes to the Delphi case. Like, why are all these things taken out? Why is it that, all of the evidence is not presented at trial? Why is it we can't hear that stuff? Why is it we can't know all of the different theories and all of the different ideas? If they have no legs and they're bullshit, it should be easy for the prosecution or the state to defend themselves against that and to say, this is not accurate because of this, and this, and this. Right? It should be simple. But yet the judge had to take it out altogether and stop the defense from being able to even talk about it at trial, from being able to present any of it to the jury. This jury is deciding on the rest of Richard Allen's life. If he did it, let him rot in prison. But if he didn't, at least hear all the evidence, know the totality of this case so that you can make a clear decision on whether you believe Allen did it or not, or whether you believe Allen did it alone or not. Right? I'm not sold that Allen is completely innocent in this. He may have been part of something else, right? But all the evidence needs to get out there. We need to see all of it to make a real decision in this case. And I think that Allen has done a disservice because a lot, and I mean probably 2/3 of what the defense actually had, never saw the light of day at trial. That's a problem. That's an issue with our legal system, right? That so much of this evidence was kept out of the trial altogether. And it's almost perfectly positioned for the defense to not be able to win this case. There's an issue with that. So anyway, we'll go on because all right, September 11th, 2024. McLeland files an objection to the interlocutory appeal. Gall denies the request for appeal altogether. So it doesn't make any difference. Even though the defense filed this interlocutory appeal, she said no. We're not even going to entertain it. What I said stands, and you all have to deal with it. So on September 23rd, 2024, the defense files a motion to have the jury visit the crime scenes. They request a visit to the Freedom Bridge, the Monon High Bridge, and the old CPS building. Judge Gall takes the motion under advisement. I don't know if they ever actually did that. I'm not sure if that actually happened or not. I didn't see anywhere where it was ever mentioned that they actually went down there and looked. But, the whole point of that was so the jury got to see, like, these places are not far from each other. You can get down to this spot and if somebody was out there screaming, you would hear it for miles, right? It's a wide open area out there, and it's not like you could hide anything. So yeah, it's and you mean this is in the winter, right? February 13th through the 14th is when this happened in 2017. So when you look at this, there's not any leaves on the trees, right? Spring hasn't happened yet. So it's barren out there. You're going to be able to hear people moving around in the woods. I spent plenty of time in the woods when there are no leaves on the trees, when there are dead leaves on the ground. You can hear everything out there. It is silent unless there's noise, unless there's people moving around. If someone is dragging a body through the woods, you're going to hear it for a good distance. If someone is out there screaming or yelling or fighting, you're going to hear it. So they wanted to take the jury out there to really get a feel for it and to understand the place that we're talking about, the closeness of all of the locations, how you could get from one place to another. So it's important, and I don't know if they ever did it or not. If they were granted that request, it is not stated anywhere where I could find. So on October 14th, 2024, The jurors are chosen. October 16th, the state files a motion to prohibit the 2 sketches of the suspect. So there are 2 sketches that are done, and I am going to talk about them a bunch later in part 3 because there is some stuff about them. I showed you the sketches earlier in the prosecution side because those sketches present a problem for the prosecution. And so they asked for them to be prohibited from the case. Again, another thing, like, how do you keep out the sketches that are crucial to identifying the suspect? It's crazy to me, like, that they could even ask for that to be allowed. Uh, and they are prohibited from trial, I believe. So on October 18th, the trial begins with both sides presenting their opening statements. The defense responds saying that the sketches are highly relevant and should be admitted as evidence. Judge Gall rules that the sketches are not admissible in court. So just another thing that is taken out of the defense's repertoire of handling and defending Richard Allen. They can't even use the sketches. Those same sketches that I showed you earlier on of Bridge Guy, and one of them he has the hat on, has a goatee. The other one he has no facial hair and curly hair. Clearly not the same guy. The defense can't present that as evidence at the trial. Like, I just don't understand. Like, how do you even prepare a defense for somebody when 2/3 of your evidence is stricken from the record? It's crazy. Crazy, crazy. All right. On October 21st, we mentioned a bunch of this yesterday, but I'm going to go through, or earlier, I'm going to go through it again because it is important. On October 21st, 2024, the jurors view the crime scene photos. On October 28th, forensic scientist testifies that DNA evidence found at the scene did not match Richard Allen. On November 4th, 2024, day 15 of the trial, a defense expert testifies about Allen's mental state in prison, saying that Allen has a history of mental health issues, including depression, and has experienced psychosis. The jurors also watch videos that day of Allen in prison and get to witness that psychosis firsthand. On November 6th, the defense rests. On November 7th, the prosecution and defense make their closing arguments. On November 11th, the jury finds Allen guilty on all counts. Right? And December 20th is the date that Richard Allen is sentenced. He's convicted and sentenced to 130 years in prison, the maximum sentence possible. Now, here's the big thing, and this is important. On December 20th, 2024, the gag order is released, right? He's already convicted. That's it. Now everybody can talk. And no one up until this point was able to talk about the trial. Other than the people that were there at the court, that watched what they could and relayed that information to us. But the people involved in the trial, the investigators and thing, were all under gag orders and not able to speak to the public or to speak to the media about anything. On December 20th, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about the theories and stuff later on, Erica Morse, who was a private investigator for the defense, and Bob Mata, the host of Defense Diaries, go live on court TV. I watched this live when it was happening. I was also following some of the stuff that Erica was talking about. She immediately proclaims that Allen is innocent. She does not believe, and she is a victim's advocate, is what she does. Right. And she believes that Richard Allen is not guilty. She did the majority of her work completely free. and went out there and investigated all this stuff. She was the one that went through all of the paperwork and everything, and also wrote down all of the different statements that were made by the many people that were involved in this. And she had the task of going back and looking at all of the times that they misspoke, the times that they added in or had Freudian slips, and was in charge of all of that stuff. So she says that he's innocent. Um, she also has some really shocking revelations in this case that may change what happens in the future here. So she says that the investigation by the FBI task force was turned in, and the author of the report was killed 5 days later by an Odinist prison guard. Greg Ferenczi, Todd Click, and Kevin Murphy wrote the Odin report. It was a 27-page report, I believe. That report detailed their investigation into the Odinism theory. And what's fascinating about this is that two of the three end up with serious problems. Greg Ferenczi ends up dead. Todd Click ends up getting convicted on some other charges and ends up in prison himself. And I'm not sure what's happened to Kevin Murphy, but I got to tell you, after everybody else that was working on it with me on the FBI task force got arrested and killed, I think I might keep my mouth shut too. So, so the report was turned in on May 2nd, 2021, and Greg was killed on May 7th, 2021. So this is early on that they turn in this report. Early on, respectively, right? 4 years after they are still investigating this whole idea of Odinism and interviewing people, and they're digging into it. So what happens is on May 7th, there was a Molotov. Greg Ferenczi was sitting in his office. He was sitting there, and on May 7th, a Molotov cocktail was thrown through his office window. And when he leaves the building and runs out of the building because it is now on fire, he's shot in the head in front of the building. Sean Meechan, I believe it is, Shane Meechan, was arrested for the murder, but he's currently in a mental hospital, unable to stand trial. So this guy is arrested and charged with the murder of Greg Ferenczi, but has not currently stood trial for that murder because he is out of his mind. Interesting that would happen. Living in a mental institution. Todd Click is arrested and charged with some unrelated crimes. Later on, we'll talk about exactly what those crimes were and get into a little bit more detail on this whole thing. But this is crazy, right? This is stuff like, again, I am not real big in jumping into the conspiracy end of things, right? I don't like to jump into crazy conspiracy theories, even though I do find them fascinating, and promise that we will cover a bunch of them this next year on the podcast. And we'll talk about a bunch of conspiracy theories because I think that they are important to gauge the climate of our society. The things that people believe matter. And we need to look at them and see why people believe the crazy things that they believe and what that means about the climate of the culture around us. You get to see that with what is it? Not Odinism. There's another thing. Oh my God, I can't think of it now. I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, all of the stuff around Trump and all of that stuff, and these different groups that are coming out and saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen. All of this stuff is indicative of what's going on in our culture today, and it's important to look at it. I don't know why I can't think of the theory now or what it's called. Anyway, we'll look at it later on this year when we go through and do interviews and stuff like that on the podcast, because I think it's incredible. But this whole thing, the fact that Greg Ferenczi is killed by a former prison guard who claims to be an Odinist, who has some connection, maybe not with the murders themselves, but with this group of people that have been identified by these three officers in the FBI task force. And one of them is gunned down in the street. None of it is talked about at trial. Zero. This is important in the whole scheme of things when we're looking at the totality of who the suspects really are in this case. Is it Richard Allen? Is Richard Allen associated with these people? Is there, something else going on? We need to see all these things to judge whether Allen is guilty or not. And none of that even made it to the trial at all. It was all kept out. So you have to wonder, what the hell is going on there in Delphi? Did Richard Allen get a fair trial? And I got to tell you, when you look at all of the things for the defense and what happened leading up to this trial, during the trial, and now after the trial, it doesn't seem like the defense really was able to give Richard Allen the fair trial that he deserved. Now, that doesn't mean that Richard Allen didn't do it. He may have very well done it. But he still needed to get a fair trial. They still needed to present all the evidence so that we could see it for what it is and we could make an informed decision on his guilt or his innocence. And that was not done. There is a lot of things in this trial, a lot of circumstances around this that make me question what really happened here. So I'll be the first to tell you that I am not sold that Richard Allen is the guy. There needs to be a lot of things answered for me to believe that. Even though I think that maybe he possibly could be the guy, I certainly don't think that if he's the guy, he did it himself. And so in the next episode, we're going to talk about that. We're going to dig in to the theories, the Odinism theory, which closely is related to the multiple people theory, and then a lot of things surrounding that we're going to talk about. So you guys that are out there watching it, this one was a little bit shorter than the last episode, but make sure you go on there, comment below, tell me what you think. Those of you that are with the defense and think that he did not get a fair trial, tell me why. Why do you think that all of this stuff was left out? Why do you think that Judge Gall denied so many of the motions for the defense to present evidence at this case? Why did she do that? Why is that a thing? For those of you that are pro prosecution, tell me, why do you think that he got a fair trial? Why do you believe that he got everything that he deserved? And why do you think that the Odinism theory or the multiple person theory is bullshit? Why do you think that? Because I got to tell you, after looking at everything, I cannot imagine that if Allen did it, he did it by himself. I don't know. So prove to me that Allen did it alone. So please comment below, write it in. Let me know what you think. I'll respond. I'm curious. And like I said, just keep it professional. Don't argue with each other. Everybody is allowed to have an opinion and everybody is allowed to share their thoughts. Even if you think somebody is full of shit, it doesn't matter, because ultimately arguing with them online isn't going to change their opinion at all. It's just going to clog up the feed and make sure that nobody really gets any information out of it. But if you have something valuable to say it. And, it's fascinating because, again, I don't see it all and I don't understand it all. There may be things out there that I'm not seeing. But when I look at this, I have serious questions. So yeah, comment, like it, share it. Comment below. Let me know what you think. I know many of you guys out there are super passionate about this case and about all of the inner workings of it. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you believe. So subscribe, like, share, comment, do all of that shit. And here in a couple hours, we will have episode 3. We'll talk theories. We'll talk everything else and where this trial is going to go in the future. So we're going to talk about all those things, and I will catch you in a few hours. See you guys.